today with Tessa Jetson, the procrastinator buster. Here we are. We've been with her all week. Full episode on Spotify and Apple. Please go and give us a follow. But here on YouTube, we split it up into 5 parts every night. To make it easier for you guys, we listen to you here at Leading Our Own Way, and we're going to continue talking about the book, the impacts that it has on the community and the engagement within the community, and it's been powerful for her, therapeutic for her too. She's very, very proud, and so she should be. The book's right here. Restart Your Life, and you can also buy this book. Click on the link in the show notes if you want to know more. But also, we're going to be looking at the transformative journey from trauma to triumph. We're going to look at overcoming adversity as well, and how we impact and help others. We talk about how Tessa's helping others and where we need to really begin with finding our purpose. That is really the root before we do any recovery. Let's think about the purpose. Purpose is being thrown around a lot, even by myself, but it's true. We have to start with purpose, and that's where we can go. That's the root. Tune in with Tessa. Here we go. Enjoy. On the subject of your book then, I've got it here. Thank you for sending it to me, by the way.
Yeah.
I want to do a little plug. If somebody was going to buy your book, what would we experience from your book?
So that book, I'm so proud of that book. There's 14 stories in there of ladies that have been through extreme, and every story is different. Like there's, stories from like abuse from the mother, just all different graphic stories. And it's just I knew a lot of them ladies who have come to my retreats, and when I was going through their stories, I was like, whoa, I was in shock. So you'll hear their story, yes. So half of the chapter is their story, and the second half is where they are now. It's a funny story how that book come about, because I was going to write my whole detailed story in a whole book.
Yeah.
And then I thought, hang on, that doesn't deserve a whole book. It's getting one freaking chapter because I want to move on. And so basically, yeah, so the story, and I'm getting so much feedback. Thank you so much, Tessa. I've read the book. It's inspiring. Even a man the other day screenshot it because he had a narcissistic mum and didn't realize, wow, that, because there's one story in there about a narcissistic mum in there. So it's basically a positive book, and so you read it, but in every story it's uplifting, where they are. And so depending on what you've been through, you're like, wow, if she can do it, I can do it. If she's moved forward. And now what's really exciting is the ladies in that book, not only did they come to my retreat with depression, drug addiction, all these different things, they are now not only an author, running businesses, speakers. They speak on I'm so proud of this. They actually, because my goal was not only help them move a little bit forward, my goal was to help them be me, like me, not me, but be like me. And guess what? Because I always thought it's going to make more impact when you're up on the stage, when I've got all these people that have done it, not just hearing me do it, because I'm super positive, but it's amazing now. When I get the other ladies up there, like my MC now, she's an MC who's in the book, who had fears of public speaking, low self-esteem, low confidence. And now she's my MC. She's on the board of my charity. I've got another lady, Angela, in there, who's now prints our book. We're in the 5th print run, and she prints our freaking book. And it's amazing, and she had such depression for 15 years of drug addiction, and she's transformed her life now, and now she's on stages with me, and it's just such a buzz, It's,
amazing.
And she's like a mentor, and she's now, I've just hired her for my charity, being my community events coordinator, because she's so positive, and she gets ladies together. We've got a big day on breathwork on Friday, and so she's got some ladies together to come to that. So we do all these cool activities, and I have rules as well. Everyone, and I've got rules that when you get on the bus, I've got a van, or you come into the retreats, 0 talk about the past, 0 talk, and no alcohol, no talking about the past, because we've all you have to send an application to get all the free things in an email. I read their story once, and then if you got to be ready to move forward. You might need some more counseling wherever you're at, but you've got to be moving forward. And she doesn't need to hear your story. It's not like the House of Commission, where I told you about before, we're all going around telling each other their crap. So I teach them, like, okay, guys, ladies, what is your goals? And so I do goal setting with them. So now they can say, oh, my goal, I want to get into acting, or I wanted to start a business, and I'll get them talking like that. Yeah. So that's what we do. We talk about goals and fun stuff.
Yeah, amazing. I feel like through knowing your journey of your book, I feel like I align with you even more because I felt the exact same. My friend, a good friend of mine who was a best-selling author, when I was going through a little bit more of a toxic environment in the workplace, not so much my bullying scene, but uh, I made a joke one night and said we could write a book because I was really passionate about helping leaders inspire the people they're supposed to lead with inspiration. And that was the angle that I was going because I really wanted teachers to go to work happy and not overloaded with chronic stress and overloaded from the department, tick boxes and so on and so on and so on. I won't bore you with that right now. And he made a joke and said, well, why don't we? I went, no, I'm not a writer. Anyway, pushed me down the rabbit hole. 18 months later, we were publishing our book, How to Lead with Purpose. And it's chapter 1 is very similar concept to yours. We collected around 30 stories, maybe a little bit less, and we put them all into chapter 1. We just asked them to do it minimal, so it just got the power of the journey out. Bang! It was therapeutic for them. It's therapeutic for me. It was therapeutic for the readers, and it really is to show leaders this is the impact you can have on people's lives if you don't lead with purpose, if you don't if you don't even live with purpose yourself. Chapter 2 is like a personal development chapter where it really threaded into those stories in chapter 1. And then chapter 3 was all around the human side of leadership, bringing those neuroscience-based leadership concepts into play. That's the book in a nutshell. My story's in chapter 1. It's called Tall Poppy, and it was about 2 pages long. Mine was probably the longest one out of everybody's, to be fair. But very similar concepts, right? Putting those stories together. Phenomenal. Yeah.
And it was so good. And also what's been really positive as well about, and now all of the authors, would say the same thing, your authors, but my ladies now, because I teach them that you get the story out, and now what they say, they're exactly like me. It's so cool now. We've got the book and they go, obviously everyone knows that, when they do a talk, for example, and they'll get up and because I run motivational seminars. In actual fact, Andrew, I'd like to book you for a talk.
Let's do it.
You just said you want to do it, so I'm going to send you. Watch within 5 minutes of this podcast. I'm going to book you for a talk because I'd love to have you there. But you'll see, so that we do now when we do these day events, it's all positive moving forward, and they'll get up and say, "Hi, my name's Angela." She'll say, "1 minute, I've been through this," and then she holds the book up and she'll say, "If you want to know the backstory of my draining story, it's in the book."
That's what I'll say. Yeah, exactly.
And that's why we wrote the book, and so it's there, and they're so proud as a speaker. They're there, and I've trained them as well because I've trained them because we had an incident like the other day where one of the ladies started talking negative to Angela, who's in the book, who's now I've just hired, and I've gotten some coaching with her, and so now she told the person, "Thank you so much for going to share with me, but my role is to do this, and if you want to go to the story, you might need to go back to counselling." And she really and she goes, "Well, I can't believe that person goes, I'm sorry. It's just a habit. Some people just have the habit of repeating the story." And I've taught her, because it's no value to keep going over it and over it and over it,
It's fascinating you bring this up because I say this quite a lot to people on the show. Actually, I was very open about my story, and a lot of guys, and the typical saying is guys shut off. They're not in tune with emotions and so on and so on. That's why we're trying to really bring men out of there to be more comfortable and more vulnerable to be comfortable and be comfortable with the uncomfortable. However, for me, I've always been an open book. Even when I was eating my chocolate and my crisps and just going to bed at 3 a.m. because I didn't want the next day, I was always very open, right? What I've recently realized over the years through studying is venting is powerful. Don't get me wrong. However, yes, venting releases the undesired emotions, but it doesn't create change, because when you go to sleep that night, the next day repeats itself. People who pretty much keep on hold of negativity keep releasing the undesired emotions, but the next day they need to do the same again because it clears the system out, but then it resets the next day. So that's why people, when you come across people who are quite, not complainers, but just they talk about their troubles over and over again because it makes them feel good that it's getting out, and that's powerful. But unfortunately, it doesn't create change, and unfortunately, they usually have to go through crisis to create change. Bullying for me wasn't the crisis. It was traumatic. I feel like I've taken the traumatic emotion out of the trauma, because trauma doesn't have to be traumatic anymore.
That's it.
Right? But
Just had a technical glitch then,
perspective.
sorry.
Oh, I didn't know. Sorry. Are you okay?
Yeah, I just don't know what happened. That's it. All good. Sorry.
All good. Yeah, no, all good. As long as you're okay. I didn't, I did all these things like buying the new, built this house, didn't fix me. Having my children, didn't fix me. I got my dream job of opening a private school from scratch, didn't fix me. Um, Me being 30 minutes away from a coma and realizing my family wouldn't have me, potentially, that created the crisis change.
Yeah.
And that's why I changed what I put into my body. Going to my doing these little things like cold exposure and breath work and what some people might consider as hippie. I don't know. I mean, the science behind it. I look at the science. I don't just do it because it makes me feel good. I want to know more. Reading has taught me so much. It's exercised my brain. These little steps that I've built up over time. I've become the clearest. Now, I've dropped 40k a year. I'm the poorest I've ever been, but I'm the happiest I've ever been. So I'm not poor. I'm far from poor. So do you know what I mean? And that's where I'm building this platform. So if I can do talks, if I can go to businesses and create change and get paid for that one day, beautiful. That's what I'm aiming for. But in the moment, I'm not rushing. I'm just enjoying the process. Is it slow and tiring sometimes? Absolutely. But it was that crisis that created the change for me. And I suppose, like what you said, you needed to go through it to become the person you are and the person that I am, the people we are. When we did the pre-chat though, I labeled the graph. I felt like your life was like this. It was on such a high, then it went such a low, and then it went on a high again because you went through a few different careers, which I'd like you just to briefly explain the different careers you went on. But then that graph came down again, didn't it?
Yeah.
Before we come to the end then, can you just talk us through that up spiral and then that down spiral again? Because you have touched on it briefly, but
Which one?
so you got careers. You worked in the mines and you went up.
You mean yeah, with the
Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes, yes,
okay.
yes, yeah.
Yes, actual. So basically, yeah, I work really, really, really hard to work on myself,
Yeah.
and so I've done so many careers. Actually, I'm writing a book as we speak called. I've actually written the book, but I've just got to get it all edited, and it's a how-to book,
Oh,
and it's
nice.
all my different careers. So because like, do you want to be a flight attendant? And someone says, and you know what I've always said, the first thing that when I want to do something is I ask someone, how do you become a flight attendant?
Yeah.
Or how do you get into acting? Or how do you, these are my careers, how do you work in the mines? Or how do you become a mortgage broker or a property developer? All my different careers, I've changed my careers every 3 years. I've really loved just doing exciting things. And I've always asked that question, like when I wanted to work in the mines, I asked somebody working in the mines, how do you do that? So I become very successful, worked really, really hard. And I think the reason there was a 10-year period I worked really hard, become successful, actually sang in a band for 15 years as well, on top of
Wow.
after the refuge. That was my fun thing.
Yeah.
And I still sing now at my events for fun.
Oh,
But
cool.
I sang in bands and that for fun. But I ended up after all that, which is going to be in my second book, because I didn't touch on it in my first book, I ended up in a narcissistic relationship, which
Mm.
after 10 years, after all the work I'd done on myself up to the age of 40, just becoming successful, careers, six figures, doing everything I ever said I was going to do, doing amazing things. And then I met this person, charming person, and I just never experienced this sort of emotional narcissistic behavior before. And then I just started to drink. And then I just got in some really bad habits, ended that relationship, but the habits. And also, looking back on it as well, I think it's that constant. I had so much pressure for so long, working so hard to give my kids the best life,
Mm.
yeah. But I was So basically, so I got into some. So that was probably 10 years before 2020, probably from 2010 to 2020. I just started getting the habits of drinking a bit too much, working, being successful. I traveled all around Australia actually the year before COVID, training and loving my life and everything. But I would always, the first thing I'd do towards the end, up to 2020, was I just want to go to the bottle shop and get a bottle of wine and just have a wine every night. Then that turned to a bottle, turned to nearly two bottles. And it was just getting really out of hand. And I just tried everything, hypnosis, tried all these different things, AA, I tried it all. Nothing worked till I'd come across learning about the brain. In 2019, I got told about it, and then I actually studied it I was one of the first clients in this particular program, and I got trained by actually Dr. Gina Cleo from Bond University. She actually was my coach. So that was pretty amazing. And so I did the program, changed my life, and I just got obsessed. And I became a master trainer in neuroscience,
Love it.
and now I just been the most happiest, and just life is just getting better, because I feel like finally, because I've achieved everything now. Like, where before it was like I've earned the money, I've done this, got the house, but then I wasn't really the healthiest, because I just hadn't really just, obviously I was drinking with the past trauma and everything as well. So I'm really loving life now. And so now I'm really passionate. I help clients with alcohol. I've got a mini habits buster program. So I have really affordable programs, because I want to help thousands of people with alcohol. And I had a lady actually who reached out to me the other day, and she came to my very first retreat in 2018. And I know she continued to drink. She bought a house, paid it off and everything like that, but she reminded me of me a lot, but pushed herself. And then she just reached out to me the other day to say, Tessa, could you please help me because you can't help someone unless they want the help. She goes, will you please help me? So she just joined my habits program. I'm really excited.
Oh, good.
Really happy. So for some ladies that I help, it does take time. Like they'll come into my world, but they're not ready to fully commit with everything. But they've left the abusive relationship. That definitely has happened. But they might still have the alcohol or, whatever it is. And then Angela's one of them. I've knew Angela since 2012, the lady that's working with me. And nice. I just kept reaching out to her, Angela, coming to my retreat. I got another retreat. And finally she got full on into it a few years ago. And now she's printing our books and has a big business and everything, which is really, so don't feel disheartened if you've left an abusive relationship. You're doing really well. Don't run yourself down, but just keep going and just keep plugging into people like myself. I have a lot of free resources, and listen to these podcasts and just keep going. Just keep hanging out with positive people. That's really important. You need to change your circle if you want to change your life, because I had to move out of that commission place that I lived in, because it was just it's really sad. And I drove past there about 6 months ago, and I stood there and I'm like, I wonder what my life would have turned out, or my kids, if I'd have stayed here. And I wonder what happened to all these kids, I was thinking. I wonder what happened to all the mums. And, it was just really sad. There was 110 units there. And it was just so much alcohol and abuse. And it's just, it was really, just, I always wonder what would have happened, but I just had that thing. I just don't want this, for my kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful journey. It's an incredible journey. You are a positive person. That graph will never go down again, will it? Or will it?
No, I'm just so happy. I pray to God every day. I'm so grateful that and since learning about the brain, learning that, because when we go through trauma, we have anxiety, we have all these things. So I was having, like I said to this lady the other day who I was helping, I said, don't run yourself down. You're having alcohol because you've gone through extreme abuse for years. So your brain has been in trauma. Your brain's been traumatized. We can undo all that. And I'm going to teach you slowly how to undo all that and rewire the brain. And you know what? I just want to share this. The number one thing that can help you rewire your brain is to have goals. And I absolutely swear by this. You need to have, that's how I've achieved so much in my life, because I clearly always have had a goal. I've always had something to aim for, and I've always had, but like you, number one before that, you need a purpose. Because I remember looking at my kids in the women's refuge, and I was 26 years old with tears coming down my face, and I've been through hell. And I remember it clear as day looking at my son, because he'd been through the oldest one, obviously could understand more. And, but I said, somehow, some way I'm going to be successful. And they were my driving force, because my purpose.
Don't tell me your purpose yet. That's the final question of this podcast. Don't say it.
Okay.
Well, on that note, coming towards the end then, I do have a few final questions before we do wrap it up. You have given a lot of advice, I can't speak right now, a lot of advice. But what I usually ask at this point is, if there was, maybe we should do a quick category. If people are going through, like you said, a lot of people are going through what you've been through, let's give some quick advice some little tips. Where could we start? If somebody was sat in your office now and you're bringing the brain into it, you said about a goal. Apart from the goal, what piece of advice could you give to somebody who's been through something similar? Let's look at abuse and narcissistic relationships. Where would you advise people to go? Outside of the goal, what piece of bringing in the brain aspect into it, where would you go first? Where would you ask the client or the person who's suffering to start with? Join us tomorrow to hear more from today's incredible guests and learn valuable insights to help you lead your own way. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you then.